Today I'm going to show you how to build a high gain patch from the scratch with your modeling unit. If you are new to modeling units or coming from analog gear maybe, you may have a little bit of a hard time to dial in a good tone with your modeling unit. The reason for that is, in my opinion, that many people that come from analog gear, they're used to maybe the sound of a 4x12 guitar cabinet in the room and maybe the tube head. And to be honest, with most of these tube heads, you're not that flexible. So even if you crank bass, middle and treble, the amp will sound more or less the same, like if you set it to 12 o'clock. At least with many of the tube amps, the tone stack is not that flexible. And also the other parameters, well, we have gain, of course, with most of these amps, gain control, master control, presence, and maybe a depth, but you're limited as far as the flexibility is concerned. And that's totally different with the modeling unit. You have way more parameters which you could tweak. So that can be a little bit difficult for people who are not used to that. And today I would like to show you my approach, what I do when I dial in a tone with the modeling unit. For that purpose, I'm using the NUX MG-30, but of course it will apply to every other unit. Let me open the editor for you. So where do we have it? It's here. And this is my patch, which I played in the intro. But let's try to create a something from the scratch. So first thing I would do is I would turn off all the fancy effects, like the reverbs, delays, maybe the drive blocks, even the noise gate maybe. And usually the first step for me is to find the right cabinet, that is to me the most important step. But of course, to judge a cabinet you need an amp. So at first I'm choosing an amp which might be an amp which I like. And so usually I end up using some kind of high gain amps, but it depends on the modeling unit which one I like. I'm usually trying out maybe the PV655 model if it's there, the VH4, Soldano, and what else? Friedman, and maybe the Marshall amps, the Plexi, Brit 800, something like that. And so let's try to start with the PV amp. So here we have the 655 model, it's called Vivo. And we set everything to 12 o'clock. But that can be done, I think I would leave it at stock settings if the amp comes with other stock settings. It's not that important. So we have this sound, and then we will try to find the right cabinet for us. So as you can see here, you have the cabinets which are coming stock with the unit. Usually I would try out maybe the 4x12 cabinets. So this is the 1960. Here you can also move around the microphone. And you could also change the microphone here, maybe to an SF57. But at this point we can engage the noise gate. doesn't do that much to the sound. Well, that doesn't sound that bad. Although the SM57 needs sometimes a little bit more mids, but anyway, so the amp is very floppy, so we can reduce the bass a little bit. Okay, that is a 1960, and let's try out some other amps, some other cabs. The greenback doesn't sound that good to me. And also, if you find the cabinet's a little bit lacking of something, maybe you could change the microphones. So what I usually do is I'm starting with an SM57 because this microphone is working with most of the cabinets. But keep in mind it has lots of high ends and also lots of low ends. So if you found the overall sound a little bit too scooped, maybe you could use another microphone. Here you can also move the microphone. If you move it away from the cone, you will get a darker sound. So here you have maybe this is the sound with the most high end. Here it's a little bit away from the cone, and here well, it's a darker sound. But also, if you find maybe the speaker or the sound lacking a little bit of mids, you could use a microphone which is emphasizing the mids. So my go-to would be the Royer 121. But yeah, that doesn't fit that well here. Of course, you could choose other microphones too, which are a little bit similar to the Royer, maybe the C3000. But my usual thoughts are, if the speaker doesn't work with an SM57, maybe it's not the right speaker. So I wouldn't keep this Winage. Swamp Thing. Here we don't have the microphone. What else? Do we have other 4x12 speakers? Don't think so. So from these few stock speakers, I would keep the 1960 with an SM57, I think. Play around with the position. But that is a little bit more complicated than you need, because if you are using your third-party IRs, maybe your favorite IRs, which I uploaded to this unit here, you can scroll through these and then choose one. So this is one which I like very much, the Mesa V30. I know it, and it will work, I think. But we could scroll through some others. So these are basically the Mesa V30 with blended with some other speakers. They don't differ that much. But here are some from Hammer Sound Labs. Sound a little bit different. usually I'm listening mostly to the high end. Of course, the overall sound is important, but the high end, if it's too harsh, then it's very difficult to dial that out. Then you cut it off with a high cut, but most of these modeling units, they seem to have problems with the presence frequencies. So if you find one IR which has nice sizzle but is not harsh in the top end, then maybe it's a good way to keep this. I would now use maybe this here, the Mega Gen. Usually I would maybe use my go-to here, the Ownhammer Mesa V30, but for today's purpose I'm keeping this here. And sounds already not bad, but the amp is very flubby. So what we do is, first of all, we can reduce the bias a little bit, play around with that, but to address the flubbiness in the bass, maybe we can use a drive pedal in front of the amp. So that would be the next thing. And before we do this, make sure that you don't run the gain too high. Maybe we'll come back to this in a second, because the drive pedal has to work somehow with the gain setting of the amp. Here maybe we can start with the Tube Screamer. Tube Screamer is a pedal which is mostly emphasizing the mids of your guitar tone. Usually people set drive to 0, level maybe to max, and tone, it depends on your guitar. But this guitar has very bright pickups. By the way, it's a Harley Benton Fusion 3 model with the Roswell pickups. So I'd rather dial the tone back a little bit. Still a little bit flubby, so we can reduce the level here. And the thing with the tone here is if you have too much flubbiness in the bass, usually you would set it to a brighter tone here. But of course then maybe it gets a little bit harsh, so I would rather dial back the gain here a little bit to reduce the flubbiness. Because I'm using more or less this pedal in front of the amp for tone shaping, or shaping the tone that is coming from your guitar. You can also use this for maybe letting your Strat sound a little bit more like a Les Paul by boosting the lower mid frequencies. Of course, I'm raising the overall level here, but in this case, most of these pedals, they don't raise the whole frequency spectrum. If you raise the level, they have their characteristic mid-focus tone, and so if you raise the level, basically what you do is you're pushing the mids. You could do this with a parametric EQ in front of the amp. But if the pedal is working, then I would recommend to use the pedal. Also, play around with that. Tube Screamer is working with the most of the amps. Another one, which I also like, is the OCD. Where do we have it here? I don't know if this unit has it. I don't know, let's try out maybe this one, which is maybe not the OCD, but anyway. So you can hear now maybe too much bass. Again, it's flubby as hell. Let's try out maybe this one. Very saturated. Sounds also very nice. You don't need to keep the drive always at 0. With some of these pedals it's working quite well if you raise the drive a little bit. So play around with that. Also, you don't have to crank the level always. Sounds very, very good to me now. So let's keep it with that. So as a summary, to get the good high gain tone, maybe you should find the right IR, which is very important. And then you have to adjust your amp that it's not too flubby in the bass or too harsh in the top end. It has overall a nice tone. And if the amp itself doesn't do all that, then maybe you can use a pedal in front of the amp to add some distortion or some saturation. And that works with most of the high gain amps. So the next step would be I would fine-tune my sound with a little bit of EQing. Let's try out how it sounds with everything at 12 o'clock. Or maybe we can save this before we go on, because I think the sound is already pretty nice. Okay, I know that the PV amp has a lot of bass. Usually I would dial back the resonance and also maybe the presence a little bit. Here we have only the presence. So next step would be I would try out what the tone stack controls do to the sound. Not that much. So you can hear it, but it's not doing that much. And also with this amp, I think the tone stack frequencies, which I heard now, which are affected by these knobs, they don't fit quite well to my the frequencies which I would like to change a little bit. So in this case, I would use an additional EQ here. And we have this, which is very flexible. If the parametric EQ here is too complicated, maybe you can start with a graphic EQ. And usually what I would do now is I would find the EQ which is addressing the right frequencies for guitar. Usually I would expect something which has something around the 600 Hertz here and something around the 1K, maybe 2K, 3K. Unfortunately, the unit doesn't have this guitar-oriented EQ. Instead, it comes with this Boss kind of EQ. So we can try out these frequencies. And this sound is still a little bit harsh in the top end. So we could dial back a little bit, maybe of the 6K K. Sounds way better. But now it's a little bit, it has too much of the lower mids in my opinion. So maybe we'll dial that out here. Too much maybe. And maybe we can add a little bit more punch, which is usually located around the 2K. Maybe we can try out this fader here. Yeah, sounds okay to me. What we can also do is, I think it kept now the Mesa V30. Anyway, then we did it with that cap. What we can also do, of course, is to apply a high cut, which I would usually do. Oh, what did it do? Okay. I don't know if we can do it here on the collection things, but usually I would play around with that too, and maybe I can show you that by using the user slot here. So we have this cabinet, and here we have the opportunity to apply the high cut. Which is maybe a good thing for live playing, because you don't need the high frequencies that much. It can get annoying. Let's play around with the EQ. But what you can do if you're cutting off the highs, you can maybe raise some of the higher frequencies a little bit. That is too much. But this EQ doesn't seem to address the right frequencies, which I would like to raise. So I would rather stay here with the parametric EQ. And one trick is, if you're doing this, maybe you can raise the overall frequencies above a certain threshold a little bit, to add some sizzle back, which you're usually removing with the high cut. But of course we changed now the EQ, so we have to remove the lows, lower mids gain. Unfortunately we can't go that far down here in the frequencies. So this EQ here is a little bit limited. Maybe we can do it with this one. Oh, but as you can see now, it's acting like a shelf, so it's like a shelf filter. So it's removing all the bass frequencies, which I didn't want to do. I just wanted to reduce the lower mids. So yeah, I think you can go on with that EQing principles and with that EQing and the principles, which I am always thinking is I'm thinking which frequencies are too much, and then I try to dial that out. And usually the things around the 200 Hertz are causing sometimes problems because they make it maybe too muddy. And also, of course, the higher frequencies. And if you are reducing some high frequencies, you can compensate the overall tone by reducing also something in the bass frequencies. So that is maybe the principle which I follow when EQing something. But that is more or less the fine-tuning of the sound. So oh, excuse me. So if you are happy with the tone which you're getting from the amp and the cap itself, that should be a good start for an overall great result. And with some of these amps I don't need additional EQs, so we ended up with this here, with the Mesa V30, and I think for recording it's nice. For live playing it's still too harsh, so dial back a little bit more of the 6K here. And the next things which I do usually, it's I'm trying to create a lead tone, and for that purpose I'm using the usually a stereo delay, and the pan delay is always a good starting point. If you don't want to tweak that much, it's just a delay which switches from left to right. You could also use a dual time delay, which is also nice, where you can set separate values to left and right. I'm using also a reverb, at least for playing at home, but I like to use a very dark sounding reverb. So if you found something which you like here with the damp reverb, it's fine, but also you can, if you use another reverb which has a tone knob, maybe you should set it to the dark setting, because then you don't get these high frequency reflections which are annoying, at least when in the reverb. Reduce the mix a little bit. The key is always with the reverb, you set the mix to the right value. It's not that important how long the decay is or something. Mix and tone is the most important for me. And of course you can apply some kind of widener effect or chorus after the amp. In this case I'm using the stereo chorus. But yeah, that depends on what you like. So I hope this helps you to get the best high gain tone out of your modeling unit. If you got further questions, please post them in the comment section below, and yeah, subscribe to my channel. Goodbye.